Welcome to Cultivate, the space where we talk about building, growing, and figuring it out as you go. I'm your host, Alex Canavan, and I am so glad you're here today. Real quick, did you know that subscribing to the show is absolutely free? It's one of the simplest ways you can support what we're building here. It helps us land sponsors, and it tells me exactly what kind of content to keep bringing you. If you haven't already, hit subscribe wherever you're listening. It means more than you know. Now, today's guest. I want to start by telling you something about this conversation before you hear it, because I think it'll change how you listen. My guest today wrote a book, not to be published, not to build a platform or sell a course, but he wrote it to give himself grace while still holding himself accountable. That distinction matters, because everything you're about to hear comes from that place. It's honest, self-aware, and hard-won. Sean Kelsey is the CEO of Nave Law Firm, one of the most recognized legal brands in Central New York. Under his leadership, the firm has grown significantly, built a people-first culture, and deepened its commitment to solving everyday people problems in this community. By every external measure, he has earned his seat. But this conversation isn't really about the firm. It's about the kid who was riding buses across Syracuse at just 8 years old, who figured out survival before most kids figured out multiplication, who grew up in foster care understanding on a cellular level that belonging isn't given, it's earned, who found his mother and lost her a week later, who walked into one of the largest DWI law firms in the state with only experience being a defendant and somehow became its CEO. This conversation is about what happens when the same intensity that drives your success starts to crack everything around you. The moment at the kitchen table, laptop open, kids playing, snapping over something small, when you can't justify it anymore. The coach who told him he was too hot. The realization that everything flowing through him wasn't leadership, it was control. And it's about what it actually looks like to change. Not in theory, but in practice, in the space between the trigger and the reaction, which sounds simple and is anything but. Sean's book is called The Uneducated CEO, and I think it's one of the most important things a leader can read right now. Not because it tells you what to do, but because it shows you what it actually costs to become who you're trying to be. I am so honored to have him on the show, and I really think this conversation is going to stay with you. All right, let's dive in. Sean Kelsey, welcome to Cultivate.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I've been dying to sit down with you. You've got a pretty incredible story, which we'll get into probably later on. But I want to know, you worked your way up to being the CEO of, I would say, one of Syracuse's most recognized law firms. For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And you did all this without a business degree.
No degree.
So what did you have that afforded you the opportunity to become CEO?
I had my past, which drove me. And I think being a little ignorant helped as well, not knowing what I know now. And the truth is, the things that I know now probably would have scared the hell out of me and kept me out of the legal field altogether. But yeah, I originally wanted to become a cop.
Okay.
Which is, thank God that never happened, because, I probably would tase somebody faster than I would chasing them down. I would tase them for that. But I think that for me, growing up where I grew up, it was a lot of figuring it out, right? And I was lucky enough to be afforded the opportunity to be able to kind of just figure it out, right? And then once I figured it out, I just outworked everybody. And good, bad, ugly, I just outworked everybody, got the next opportunity, outworked it. Got the next opportunity, then outworked it, and just didn't stop.
Thank you again for tuning into today's conversation. Before we get into the good stuff, though, I just wanted to let you know that Cultivate is now on Substack. After you subscribe, you'll get weekly episodes sent straight to your inbox, and once a month, a bonus newsletter from me where I share what I'm personally learning and navigating on leadership, community building, mindset, and building a mission-driven business. No highlight reel, no pretending I have it all figured out, just what's true in real time. You can find the link to subscribe in the show notes. I'd love for you to be a part of it. Okay, now back to the conversation. So how did you find your way into Nave Law Firm? I mean, before then you were what, in media sales? Is that right?
Yeah, I was in media sales, and then I actually lost my job from a DWI, right?
Mm.
And my boss at the time said, we never had this conversation. So I was like, okay, we never had this conversation. Years later, after I tore my ACL and went out for surgery, they did a background check and they found it out that I had the DWI. So they had to let me go. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? Because media sales was like, I was really, really good at it. And I enjoyed doing that work of helping these businesses grow and develop. So I went through this path in my life of like, what am I going to do? And I ended up going down to Miami, Florida, and I started doing mortgages down there. And after I did the mortgages down there, I started seeing some really shady things with the mortgages going on. So I was like, I have to go back to Syracuse. Something was just calling me. And when I went back to Syracuse, I ended up doing the mortgages for the partners of the firm at the time. And they met with me and they said, we like you. We don't know how you fit in. And I was like, okay, but we want to hire you. So I was like, okay. So I asked a bunch of different questions and I said to him, I think your opportunity is in offering clients payment plans. And I was brought in to do just that. So I built an AR system, which we still use today.
And if anyone doesn't know what an AR system is, can you explain that?
Sure. AR system is accounts receivable system, right? Because what I came to learn through a bunch of different research before they had all this AI stuff that could probably do it all for me now, was that the last thing people wanted to do was owe their lawyers money. And the fees that they were charging was probably about 25% of someone's annual income, right? So if you're asking for somebody's 25% of somebody's annual income up front, they typically won't have it. So I was like, offering payment plans to be able to do that. That's what we're able to do and just streamline the process.
Yeah. And you said that this was an opportunity for them. Is this something that other law firms just simply weren't doing for their clients?
I think a lot of law firms don't do it because they don't have the administrative help to be able to do it. Because it's risky, right? You're offering client legal services that you're going to perform probably no matter what, even if they don't pay, and you're going to take that risk of payment on there. A lot of law firms aren't able to do that. And then you have to add the other layer of having somebody, when the payments are declined, make those calls, right? So I built the AR systems, the people systems to really kind of allow that to happen for the law firm.
So you went from accounts receivable to director of operations.
I did.
Have you always just found yourself being an operator?
I think that what I do is I take negative situations and turn them into opportunities, right? That's my why in life. That's how I just love it. And I was actually doing the AR and I was taking calls. So 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and somebody gets arrested, they need help. They would contact us. We would do that process. I ended up having to go to Vegas for the week and the managing partner said, I'll take the calls. Don't you worry about it. And I was like, fine. Came back and he goes, oh, the calls weren't that bad. I'll take the calls. You help streamline the operations because you're very process oriented. So I said, sure, anything that I didn't have to take the calls anymore. A week later, because it wasn't busy when I was out, a week later after we made this transition, it was busy. And he's like, we got to find somebody else to take these leads. And I said, okay, I will now go find somebody else. So that's when I was able to come in and kind of really build the operations out to scale it to a point where when a new client came in, you knew pretty much everything that was going to happen. And again, this was all before the AI systems and all of that now. So
do you think there's a common thread with your skill for streamlining and solving problems to how you grew up and kind of being forced to figure it out on your own?
yeah, I think, and again, it's this thing that in the moments, you're not aware of all of these things, right? When I was younger, I used to have to do so many different things used to take bottles and cans and do can drives so that I can then sell it to make more money on the side. And at the time, you're just trying to survive. And as an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid, you're not realizing that, right? So I think that being that 8-year-old kid that went through all of the things that I went through, build a level of resilience where my level of failure, my level of stopping because of failure is very, very, very very low. Like I will keep going and keep going and keep going. I'm going to figure it out. And I think that in the legal field that a lot of people look at things the same way. And if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I'm like, no, I want to break it and rebuild it from that perspective. So yeah, my past and my history is the driving force of where I am, good and bad, right?
Yeah. You don't realize it at the time because it's kind of like something you have to do, but you're picking up on these different entrepreneurial skills
Yeah.
and this entrepreneurial spirit. What are some of the other things that you did in your childhood,
Oh,
maybe out of survival,
I did
that
so
were
many
creative
things.
too?
I did so many things. I remember, taking the cans and bottles and then trying to sell them for a little bit more because people didn't have to deal with having to take them back. So I wanted to make some money off there. I did the typical lemonade stands. I did anything. I would skip school. I would do all the different things. So I did so many different things, Alex said.
You would skip school so you can go make a buck
Yeah.
instead.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's the thing.
I
They
get
don't
it.
teach until probably in the last 5 years. I don't realize the things that you did were the reasons why I am who I am, good and bad, that drive me to push myself to that next level.
Yeah. Well, if someone's listening to this and has never heard your story, are you willing to share a little bit about kind of how you grew up and why you think everything happens for a reason?
Yeah. I'm an open book. I got nothing to hide. And one person hears my story and they get motivated, it's a win. But my story is a lot about holding myself accountable while also giving myself grace at the same time, right? Because I know the things that I went through, I minimize a lot because it's not a big deal. People are like, oh, your story's so interesting. And I'm like, not to me, right? Because it's my story. But yeah, I'm an open book.
What was life like growing up for you? And how did it
L-
teach you independence?
Life for me growing up, I had a mother who was an addict and a prostitute. I had a father who was just pretty absent. He lived in Utica. My mother lived in Auburn, on the outskirts of Auburn. And they had both had custody of me. So what they would do is they would put me on the bus in Auburn. My mother would put me on the bus in Auburn. They would then take me to Syracuse. I would get off the bus in Syracuse, and then I would go to Utica. And my dad would pick me up in Utica. And again, as an 8-year-old kid, now I'm like, I have an 8-year-old daughter, and I'm like, I couldn't imagine putting her on a bus to catch up with her mother. Like, that's insane to me.
Was it a city bus or a school bus?
No, it was not like a coach bus.
Okay.
So that was
Yeah.
the nicer version of the bus. But still, like, I'm like, nowadays, people's calling CPS on that kind of behavior, right? Like,
Yes.
I'm definitely,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Don't gaslight yourself.
Yeah,
Sean.
right? So then one time my father never picked me up at the airport. And therefore my mother ended up getting sole custody at that point. So then that was the path with my mother. My mother, I see a lot of me in my mother. My mother is loud. She's boisterous. She didn't deal with any bull crap. She would call people out on their nonsense, all of those things, right? Which all handled correctly are good things, right? Unfortunately, my mother did not handle them correctly, right? Very mentally abusive, physically abusive, would make me go out in the yard to pick up a stick that she would hit me with, which, if you think about it, is really mentally exhausting because I'm like, this isn't big enough. This one's too big. So you're just picking these sticks that you hope don't hurt, but that if they break, you're in even more trouble, right? But I remember at one point she dropped me off in the middle of the woods on a road and just said, "Get out." So I got out, and I just remember walking through the woods and being really, really scared of like, what am I going to do? In fact, maybe that's why I don't like we were having a conversation earlier about the woods. Maybe this is creating a trigger of that. But I remember finding my way home.
You don't like how quiet the woods are.
I don't like how quiet the woods are. I'm a thinker in my mind, and hearing myself think sometimes, I want to be able to shut that off, right? But I remember I ended up finding my way home. And again, I'm 8, 9, 10. And that's the thing about my history is I had hidden all of it, right? And I didn't know about any of it. And a lot of it came out when I was in psychology in college. In fact, they were talking about regression. And all of a sudden I blacked out and started talking and don't remember the things that I talked about. And then that night at dinner, the girl I was dating at the time was also in the psychology class. And she was like, hey, by the way, do you know you said this in the meeting? And I was like, nope. I had regressed everything. And I talked about growing up, being sexually abused and all of the things. And I just was like, I blacked it all out, right? So now when I tell the stories, it's typically age ranges, right? Because I don't remember exact of that. So I just remember the moments, and then I'll be like 8, 9, 10, right? So, but anyways, when you're 8, 9, or 10, it could have been around the corner, right? But when you're in the woods all by yourself, you don't know how far it is. So I am finding my way home like a cat would. And I ended up eventually going into foster care at that point.
You were about 12, 11,
I was
12?
11, 12 when I went into the foster care system.
Yeah.
I went in under PINS, which is person in need of supervision, which was because I was probably acting out in school and doing things. And I look back and I see the things that kids do nowadays. And I was like, I never did any of that, right? I was probably just hyper, probably ADHD. And I would, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, but I would act out a lot of times. And that was my way of getting attention, right? It was my way of, if I can make somebody laugh, they're not thinking about me as the foster kid.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, with all of this stuff happening at home, was there a lot of concealing and hiding and like shame that you had to carry with you in, school and other public forums?
I remember one time my mom wanted to dye my hair, and it happened to be around my birthday, which is in October.
And she just wanted
She
to
wanted to
dye
dye my hair a lighter blonde, right? Just because she wanted a lighter blonde. I don't know why. Well, the material that she got with my already blonde hair turned my hair orange. And I remember I was like, great, what a month to be having orange hair. And it's October, right? But yeah, I look back in me being a better self now. I don't know if people even noticed. But in the moment, in my head, everybody notices, right? Right. When I have to ask for car rides, right? Because my foster mom's working and I can't so I need a ride to practice, or I'm having to ride my bike to practice, which is a 5-mile truck uphill on the way home. The way down to practice was great because it was 5 miles of just downhill. But the way home was really, really rough. In fact, I had a funeral, unfortunately, a couple of weeks ago. We went there and I was like, I don't know how I rode my bike up all of these hills, but it was crazy. But yeah, when you're in it, you feel just so inadequate. You feel like when you're going through the lunch line and you're getting free lunches, right? When you're going through the line where you can't get chocolate milk, which was 25 cents because I didn't have it, where everybody's getting ice cream and I can't have ice cream, right? So it's one of those things where nowadays, my kids ask for ice cream. It's that instant yes, right? Not that I should say yes, but it brings back really painful things even nowadays, right? Like, we had an opportunity where my daughter had her ice cream day at the local ice cream place, and you could give an extra $5 for somebody that didn't have it. And I was like, yes. But it's those things that really bring emotion to me. But I think nowadays what it does is it creates a level of gratitude and really appreciating the things that I have to be grateful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you certainly are an extremely generous and one of the kindest people I've ever met. But I've also noticed you respond to emails within like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And having known your story And being the kind of person that I am that loves to just like understand people and why they are the way they are. Do you think that the hypervigilance that you developed in your childhood has, in a way, I'm sure it's certainly caused problems for you, but do you think it's also served you in some ways?
Yeah, I mean, I think that everything has its good and has its bad, right? I think everything is there. It's like in moderation, right? Like a cheeseburger is good, just not every single day, right? Unfortunately. But yeah, it's so funny you respond to you talk about the responding to emails, right? Because it's this I've working with this with my therapist because it's this always this desire and this need to provide value. I got to provide value, got to provide value. I'm not a lawyer, right? I'm not a lawyer. If I'm not a lawyer, I got to provide value, right? Because in my mind, that a lawyer can go to court, represent clients, so all of that. I'm not able to do that. So I have to make sure that I'm providing all of these lawyers this value and the clients of value and the employees of value. And, with a lot of work of realizing that the reason why I do what I do and I'm successful at doing what I'm doing is because I'm not a lawyer, right? I'm able to view things in a much different perspective than a lawyer would, right? Like I'm going to look at marketing much different than a lawyer would. I'm going to look at operations much more than a lawyer would. Because what typically makes a lawyer a really great lawyer typically makes them not a great employee. And what I mean by that is they get so focused that they have these blinders over here, right? And I think what I'm able to do is I'm able to help with those blinders over here, right? I want them to be really good lawyers, really focused on the law. I want them to go really deep, but I just don't need them to do it where that's our company handbook, right?
Hmm.
Like please don't. But I have to take it in moderation with that too, because it can make you crazy working with lawyers.
Oh, I bet. Well, it's funny that you bring this up because this kind of affirms something that a conclusion that I'm drawing that'll lead me to my next question. And, you explaining the lunch line where you can't get chocolate milk or you can't get ice cream and thinking about the Uneducated CEO, the book that you just wrote.
Yep.
I can't help but, by the way, this book was incredible. I know that you won't ever give yourself the credit, but there were some moments that brought me to tears, and not because they were sad, but because they made me feel so seen.
Mm.
And I think one of the things that's given me the courage to step into leadership and to go out and build something that is different for this area, or something that I haven't seen other people do. And I think it's because I've always felt like I didn't really belong.
Mm.
And I think that when you grow up feeling that way, you just kind of become okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it can be lonely, I think that it can also be a superpower because you're so used to being the outcast or feeling like you don't really belong anywhere. So screw it, I'm just going to go build my own thing.
Yep.
So I want to talk about why you decided to open the book, sitting in a room full of CEOs,
Mm.
looking around while you're at a profound event.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, ultimately coming to the conclusion that you didn't really belong there.
Yeah. In a moment, it came to that conclusion. I definitely feel like I belong today. And the great thing is, Alex, nothing's changed. And I feel that way now. So the change has been inside me, right? But yeah, I remember we were at an event. We're actually I was sitting next to a guy who was actually a very good friend of mine now, John. And John really wasn't paying attention to much of anything. He was just sitting there working. And I'm like, man, this guy's just like me. I got to not be like that right now, right? I've got to be this sponge of this information. And people are sharing their stories and they're sharing, their business successes, and they sold the business for $5 million, or, all of these initiatives that they're doing and launching. And I'm like, man, what am I doing here? Like, I'm really asking myself, what am I doing here? And it was at that same event, I was talking to a very good friend of mine, Aram Moody. At the time, he wasn't a good friend. Now he's a really good friend of mine. And he asked me a series of questions, and I answered them, and I kept going. And it was this moment where, again, he goes, repeat what you just said. I said, Arel, I have no clue what I just said. I rambled, and I blocked out what I had said. But I had the conversation with him saying that I didn't feel like I belonged in the room because I grew up in foster homes. Right. And I would have holidays where I would go to 7-Eleven to get dinner, right? Because that's the only thing that was open, right? And I'm telling him all of these things. And he goes, you told me what your superpower is and you don't even realize it. And I was like, can you tell me what it was? And it was that I built everything that I have in my life through family based on what I didn't have, right? I built culture through family, right? I built my family that I have now, I built that so that they didn't have to worry about the things that I worried about as a child, right? So I took the things in there in my past to really kind of create that to be a superpower. But it took a while to really kind of just figure it out, right? Because I think that people like us, we're just grinders and we're just going to work and work and work and we'll figure it out. And then we get to a place where we start doubting ourselves, right? And then you have this moment of, do I belong or what am I doing or all of these things? And then rather than figuring it out, you just go back to work, right? You just keep the noise, keep the noise, keep the noise. Because I think what happens is that we are in this fight or flight state, right? And I'm always in a fight. Like I'm ready to fight at any given time. Like a lawyer says something that is aggressive or I consider disrespectful, let's go. I've had multiple encounters like that, but I've had to teach my brain that not everything's a fight, right? I'm not being chased by a bear and I need to really kind of go into this, I either need to fight or I need to hide. But yeah, going in profound really was something that was really powerful. And it's so funny that I mentioned that in the book because I eventually became the board president of Profound and became a non-for-profit. So going from where I didn't belong to actually leading from their perspective was a full 180 on that.
If you've ever wondered how brands like Bacardi and Lululemon make their video content look that good, stay with me for 30 seconds. We're going to take a quick pause from the conversation so I can tell you about our sponsor for today's episode, Big River Film Company, a full-service video production company built for brands that need clear strategy and a smooth production process. Their tagline is actually video content that connects, and connection is kind of our whole thing here, so you can see why this was a natural fit. Based right here in Syracuse and actively serving brands across central New York, Big River brings national level experience to our local market. They've worked with brands like Bacardi, helping create video content around new product launches, as well as household names like Macy's and Lululemon. Whether you're in food and beverage, healthcare, finance, or anything in between, Big River Film Company can help you create video content that moves your audience to action. If video is on your radar for 2026, these are the people to call. Visit bigriverfilmco.com to explore their work and reach out about your next project. Some of the biggest breakthroughs happen when you finally step away from the noise long enough to hear yourself again. This is Camp Collective, an intimate women's leadership retreat November 13th through the 15th at Vanderkamp in Central New York. Equal parts strategy and restoration, a weekend designed for women who are ready to rest, reflect, reconnect with their vision, and build a real plan to bring it to life. Think community building, connection, and reflection, paired with yoga and breathwork, guided workshops on vision casting and execution planning, time spent outdoors on the trails at Vanderkamp, sauna and cold plunge sessions to reset, and of course, bonfires to close out the evenings. Camp Collective is exclusively for members of the CNY Women's Network. And right now we're offering First Ascent access until July 31st to lock in the lowest rate possible, get priority room selection, and help shape the weekend itinerary before it's finalized. Only 4 spots remain, and access closes July 31st or until spots fill up. Learn more about Camp Collective at cnywomensnetwork.com/camp. And if you have any questions about becoming a member or joining First Ascent, email join@cnywomensnetwork.com to get the conversation going. Step away, come back with clarity. I want to kind of go back into this figuring it out. era,
Okay.
because like you sit here in front of me today and you've done the work and you're still doing the work. And I can tell you're feeling so good where you're at right now. But, building a business is no joke. Leading a team and refining systems is a lot of pressure.
Yep.
What did this season of business look like for you while you were carrying all this pressure, but you hadn't yet really done the work?
It was a lot of yelling, a lot of throwing things. It was a lot of leading by fear.
Okay.
I'm a pretty big guy. I can be the loudest person, the most aggressive person in the room. And I think that I look back at it and it was not knowing all of the things, not knowing how to lead as a servant leader, not knowing any of those things. And I think that the people that are my closest friends have seen that transition in me in really kind of focusing more on the person. At the time, it was all about the task. Let's get this task. Let's not screw this task up. Let's go from this way. And it created the point where it was Sean's way, right? And when you're leading my way, it's not always the right way, right? That was the difficult part for me, is just being this, this factor of it's got to be my way, because I know my way is going to be right. Because the past has told me so, because I'm successful in my role, even though I may have this self-doubt, but I must be doing something right if now I'm the CEO of the law firm as a non-lawyer. So my ways has to be working. You get to a point where you're like about to break, right? And you're asking yourself, like, what do I need to change? Right. And at that moment, realize that I was the one that needed to change. It wasn't my staff. It wasn't my family. It was me that needed to make the change. I was going at a pace that was going to kill me. And, I talk about it a little bit. And that breaking point for me was my father-in-law passing away, which was really, really hard for me. He was somebody that I was really close with, that pure father figure friend that I never had. And when he passed away, again, I have to always try finding positive out of negative, right? That's what gets me going. That's what gets me through the grief and all of that. And it's still really hard. We had an event this Saturday for him, and I was explaining some things we're doing with flags. All of a sudden, I'm telling the person, I'm like just crying, and I'm like, oh. So it's going to be with me forever. But it was that voice in me that says, I want to live longer for my kids. And just going through this whole transformation of being more intentional about the things that I'm doing. From a leadership perspective, from perspective with my kids, with my marriage, all of the things, being really much more intentional with it.
It's hard for people who grew up in fairly normal circumstances to become more intentional.
Yeah.
But when, in the circumstances that you faced growing up, I'm sure your brain has been wired a completely different way than most. I cannot relate to what you went through, but I did grow up in a very chaotic environment where you can never predict
Mm-hmm.
people's response.
Yep.
And I have found that I thrive in chaos now. And sometimes I almost create chaos for myself without actually knowing it.
Yes. Same.
And, you know, in my leadership, it's really bitten me in the butt because I tend to procrastinate and wait to the last minute until something's an absolute emergency.
Yep.
And then I will absolutely crush the task and get it done and feel so great about myself. But
Yeah.
why did I have to create so much chaos for myself in
Yeah.
order to do something that could have just been peaceful and gotten done?
Same. I came to that same exact conclusion where I can thrive in chaos because I had to, right? It was survival for me. But I'm not in survival mode right now, right? So I've had to realize that it's okay to not be busy, right? Because my thought process was, I got to be busy. You'll think this is crazy. I used to have my schedule of the things I was going to do booked out for at least 6 months. From 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, I'm going to do this in 6 months. And I was going crazy, like, no. And I said to my wife, I said, I'm losing my mind. I'm like, I never have time to do my stuff. And she says, well, and I'm like, I'm sick of dealing with all the bullshit, right? The things that come up. She goes, well, isn't that part of your job? And I realized, she didn't say it to be rude, but it was a light bulb moment for me. And it's like, it is my job. I have to build that into my schedule, right? Otherwise, it's a distraction and I'm never going to get anything done, right? So now I only do a week at a time to stay laser focused. And then I have initiatives that I say I need to get done this month. And that usually gets pushed to my weekly agenda. But yeah, I was going crazy with that. And it's just this concept. And again, it goes to, I want to say that it's to provide value because I'm a non-lawyer working in a law firm, but it's just work, right? Like it's just thriving and being busy. And then when you're not busy, you're like, I feel like I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So having that quiet and that silence feels like it's wrong.
Yeah. That's the price of ambition. And wanting to, and it's not just ambition for yourself. Oh, I have these big goals because I want to be important. It comes from this true desire, like I need to create value in the world.
Yes.
I need to do something.
Yep.
And although you might be creating peace and security for everybody else, it's really interesting to see, okay, but what is this costing me?
Yeah.
So I have to know, in this journey that you've been on of becoming more intentional and learning how to pause and slow down at times, has there been like resistance? Personally speaking, I find that like lack of action and movement can create depression and despair for me personally, but it's because I'm almost addicted to this feeling of chaos and busyness.
Yeah. It's tough, right? Because, I was actually having a conversation with my wife. We have coffee every single Sunday. And I said, I'm on this journey to always improve, right? And when you say that, you don't understand the pressure that puts on other people though, too. Right? Like this is about me wanting to always improve. And her response was, is there a time wherever it's just good enough? And without even thinking, I go, no. And I probably said it in a way that was so like, why would you ever think that? Right? But there's got to be a place where it becomes enough. But it's this struggle because if I ever say it's enough and I'm complacent, I can lose everything that I've built towards, right? That's the biggest fear for me, is that I'm going to lose all of the things that I've built if I don't keep going. And at some point, that's going to break.
Yeah. And I think what the real question is if you did lose everything, would that be enough?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the goal, right?
Right.
That is like, that has to be enough if we're ever going to have true peace. I want to jump into like your leadership. You are an operator. So I'm really curious around some of, how you've been able to build such a great culture at Nave. I mean, you guys are known for solving everyday people problems and having a very like people first culture at the firm, which I think is incredible, especially in the industry that you guys are in.
Yeah.
How have you gone about that and how do you create culture for Nave?
It's actually something that's so easy for me because it was, I got into the industry and I'm always looking for where's the opportunity, right? And everybody knows that there's lawyer jokes for a reason, right? So when I first went in the industry, it was about creating the client experience, right? It's what you can control. Like you can't control somebody that got a DWI and they had a blood alcohol content of a 0.25. You can't control that. You can control how you treat that person. You can control how you can't judge. Our motto is if you judge, you cannot serve. And so true, right? So I've built culture through treating them as their family, right? And family doesn't mean that there's not accountability. Family doesn't mean that it's okay to make mistakes. It's not okay to not make mistakes, all of the things. So we're all family and we talk about all of the things. But for me, it happened probably about 6 or 7 years ago when I was doing an exit interview with somebody. I think it was a paralegal going to law school. And I said, talk to me about what you think about the firm. And she goes, I think it's great. I think that there's a lot of pressure. And I said, tell me about this. And she says, it seems to be that we're so focused on the client experience that we have the mindset that the client's always right, right? People always say that client's always right. And in a law firm, they're not always right, right? But when you have that mindset that you're going to pick the client over the employee, that's a really crappy feeling. So at that point, that was a light bulb moment for me where I was like, we have to prioritize our people, our community, our clients. And it has to be intentional in that order. And if the byproduct of that is what I really wanted, which was a good client experience. It doesn't have to be clients first all of the time, but it's got to be about the employee. If the employee is happy to be there, because here's the thing, employees don't want a job. They want to be part of something, right? Most people they don't wake up to say, hey, I want to go in and I want to be a widget maker. They want to go and be part of something, right? So if you build the culture for them to be part of something, then I think that it creates an experience for the employee, right? And you make it real. If you were to walk into our office, you'd probably hear a couple cuss words, right? Most law firms, you're not going to hear that. And if you hear that, it's probably at depositions or something really, really aggressive. Any given day, you'll see that. You'll have a potluck. We have potlucks every single month that are themed. We did flag football. We will go to a baseball game. There's just multiple things that we'll do. We've got Nave neighbors. We've got multiple different initiatives so we can take the stress of being an attorney, a paralegal, an admin in a law firm off of their plate so that for that 10 minutes, you can recharge. For that hour during flag football, you can not think about that client who has not done the work that you've done in emotional intelligence and maybe are being a little bit disrespectful.
So this started what? You said 8 years ago that you really started
Yeah, it was
implementing
like
these
8
things?
years ago, just kind of transforming and putting the employee first.
And how have you seen this affect the overall business?
Yeah, from the overall business perspective, it's worked for legal admin. It's worked for admin. It's not really worked for lawyers. Because I think that they're just wired differently. And that is where I'm at now with the lawyers. Is we just launched this wellness army with all of these fantastic, amazing humans. And the feedback was,
I think I saw something on social last week.
yeah, we launched Thrive. Feedback tremendous.
Yeah.
Most of the lawyers, oh, it's probably not something I'll ever do. Meanwhile, lawyers have a suicide rate that's twice the normal, right? And so I was talking to somebody, I'm like, if our lawyers are not going to take advantage of this, we need to create a space where they will, right? Because so now I'm looking like, okay, can I build this for lawyers in Central New York, right? Like, what more pain do I want to put myself through trying this, right? But if I can get a group of 10 to 15 lawyers that are really working and focusing on their own well-being. And then the byproduct of that is my staff will see that this is genuine and real and what we're doing it for the community. Maybe they can kind of come on board at that point, right? Because I've come to realize that it can't be forced. People have to figure it out on their own.
Yeah. And they have to want.
They have to want
to feel
it.
good.
They have to want it. They can't just do it because Sean's saying this is going to be good for you,
Yeah.
right? Like I remembered I was doing emotional intelligence work with a lawyer and it wasn't working. And we got to a point where we had to terminate him. And his first thing he says, well, Sean, I read that book for you. And I was like, that explains the problem right there, is that book was for you. It was not for me. And this is an individual that has, had struggles with alcohol and struggles keeping a job and all of the things. But again, it's my fault from that perspective. But there needs to be a level of personal accountability, right? And it's just these things that I want to instill in people before it's too late, right? Before there's a suicide, before there's a problem with alcohol, before all of these things, right? Because I've seen the impact, right? And that's kind of what makes our staff as powerful as it is because we've been through shit. Right. I've got, people that have gotten a DWI on our staff. I've gotten people that have gone through a divorce, and so therefore they understand what the client's perspective is, which is super powerful. But what if we could help them before they got to that point? That's where the impact is really going to change. And as you're building this, right, if we're helping change employees' lives, the byproduct of that, like I said earlier, is not only that they're good with the clients, they're also probably going to be loyal to the firm as a result of that too, right? Like I have not lost anybody on my admin team 6 years.
Wow.
I've had no turnover.
That's really
Turnover
impressive.
that's been unforced. Right?
Yeah.
Somebody quitting versus me terminating. And I think that's a lot because that we're human with our approach.
Yeah. I want to hear more about this wellness army though. Are there
Yeah.
other brands involved, organizations involved?
Yeah. So what we did was I have a lot of really amazing friends that are all about wellness, whether it's Tracy Dando, whether it's Meg Thomas, the breath work, all the work that she does, whether it's Kate Hauk. Love her. She's so amazing.
She's an incredible leader.
She is so amazing.
Yeah.
Emily Gozy, another amazing human, just really great humans.
Great at what she does too.
Phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
PCC, you can't forget that, right?
Yep.
So it's this great thing where we've got all of these different avenues, and we've built it to have a lunch and learn, a 90-minute lunch and learn, so that we can give them a taste of what this army member can do, right? So Tracy will come in, talk about psychological safety, or Emily will come in and talk about nutrition or hydration, right? And if it sparks something of interest, we now have booked individual one-on-one time with all of these army members, because that's the struggle, is that for me, HR has completely changed how it's done, right? Like, could I go find an expert and bring an expert in that knows all of the things? Probably. One, it's going to be really expensive to get it right. But two, I think that there's always that thought, they're making me do this because it's their job, right? It's kind of like how I used to be with therapy, right? Like, I don't want to go to therapy. I'm paying them to listen to me. Therefore, that's why they're listening to me.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't feel genuinely cared for, or like
for sure.
There's true curiosity there.
For sure. I've come to learn that's clearly not the case. Well, if you're in therapy and you feel that's the case, you probably need a new therapist.
Yeah.
But I felt that it was going to be a more genuine approach if I brought this army in of third-party experts, each of them in their own lane, whether it's Michael Scrow talking about, how did I not remember Michael Scrow talking about emotional intelligence, or Emily talking about nutrition, so they can kind of then take advantage of all of that information.
So you're focused on people and then community. So you have Nave's Neighbors. Tell me about Nave's Neighbors. Where did this idea come from?
Yeah.
I love the name.
Nave's Neighbors came from COVID, because again, now the law firm is non-existent right now at this point because the phones have stopped ringing, right? And I made this dedication to my staff that would say, nobody's going to lose their jobs, right? Because we're thinking this 2-3 weeks, month max thing. And I was like, guys, don't worry about it. Enjoy the time, refresh. We would do goofy things where we would drop bags off each other's houses, and then they have to go to the next employee's house to drop a bag, or just to kind of keep a level of human connection there. But I realized that a lot of businesses were struggling. So it started with some coffee shops and, some junk kings and all the things that could use the businesses at the time, right? So it started just taking our marketing dollars and switching it to helping promote them.
Okay.
And then at that point, I realized, once COVID started coming back to normal, I realized that there's a lot of non-for-profits out there that are all started with really great intentions, but lose a voice out there. And I'm a firm believer, whether it's me being naive or not, that everybody wants to give back. They just don't know where. So I wanted to build a platform that could provide an outlet where maybe somebody could look at getting involved in a non-for-profit that they're passionate about, and it changed their life. So we do monthly lunch and learns with different non-for-profits that come in and tell our staff about what all they do, to create that level of awareness. And then if they have any initiatives that goes on, then we'll help them with their initiatives.
I think that's beautiful. I did not know that you guys did that.
Yeah.
I feel like more companies need to be doing that in Central New York, especially because we do have a ton of incredible nonprofits here.
Yes.
And a lot of them have similar-ish missions
Yeah.
too. And they're doing really important work. One of the things I would love to do more of is highlight more of the nonprofits
Yeah.
and collaborate with them in one way or another, because especially the women in our network, they're hungry. They're ready to give back, to give their time,
Yeah.
talent.
Just thinking out loud, my involvement in a non-for-profit probably started my transformation. I remember I met this girl with cystic fibrosis. I was going to a golf tournament. I was very depressed. I would probably say I was borderline suicidal because I didn't know why I was doing the things I was doing anymore. Work was extremely stressful. It was very overwhelming. Went to a golf tournament and was like, maybe this will be the last fun thing I do. And I met this girl by the name of Grace, this 9-year-old girl. Tell the audience about the struggles of her day to live. And it just gave me so much perspective. I was like, I'm in. Whatever you guys need, I'm in. And they were very good at capitalizing, utilizing me from that perspective. So I did a lot of work with cystic fibrosis. And thankfully, they've now have medications that can help 95% of those individuals with cystic fibrosis. But I think that I want somebody to have that moment, right? That powerful moment where they feel like they matter and they can help influence other people's too.
Thank you for sharing that. That makes me think of one of my favorite quotes by Ed Milet. Do you know who Ed Milet is?
No clue.
He's like a business coach,
Okay.
leadership. He has an incredible podcast. And he says, when you become helpless, you need to get helpful.
Love
And
that.
that's just when you are feeling the despair, the depression, the hopelessness, that's when you know it's time to get out of your way and get into service and help other people.
Yeah. 100% agree with you.
That is the medicine.
Yep.
So back to the Uneducated CEO, you told me that this book wasn't written to be published.
No.
It wasn't even really written to be shared or promoted or
In fact,
distributed.
I think 5 people have seen it.
Well, I feel honored. It was beautiful, Sean.
Thank you.
You have a gift. I'm really thankful that I got the chance to read it because, like I said, it made me feel really seen and like I wasn't alone. Why did you write this?
When I started it, I was like, do I want to write a book? And a good friend of mine, Don McPherson, says, do it. And I was like, oh, okay. So I just started to just scramble some things down and was like, where do I want to go? Where do I want to start? And so I just started to just type. That's all. That's what I did. And the way that I wrote it is just as thoughts came to my mind, I just started typing them out. But I wrote it for 2 reasons. One, to give me grace, because I look at the kid I was, and doing this makes me really proud. And it's really hard for me to say that. It almost makes me emotional because it's like they say, go to that mirror, look at yourself and say, I love you. I struggle with that. That is helping me of saying, wow, you really have come a long way. And the other factor that I'm doing it for is accountability, which sounds like a 2-edged sword, but I have to live my life with accountability and grace, right? And it's got to be a teeter-totter because I want to make sure that I don't revert back, right? That's a fear of mine. There's times where it does, right? And I have to allow grace to take over and say, you're human. You had a relapse, go back, and it's okay. And that's what I tell my staff all the time. I say, listen, you can't take back the things that happened. They happened. Move forward. So it's for accountability and grace.
What has the actual process of writing taught you? Has
Um,
it been cathartic?
it's been very emotional. Very, very emotional. I was actually talking to my therapist about this, and I've been feeling different inside. Not like a depressed, but just not anger. Right. And that's what he's explained to me, saying there's other emotions. You have just gone through the things that you've gone through for the longest time, that your fight is always on. And now you're getting to the next layer of that. Right. So that's what's exciting to me, is saying, okay, wow, like I'm almost 50 and I wish I did this in my 30s, but oh well, right? Maybe I couldn't have done that in my 30s. And I'm looking forward to the future of that, right? Of what the future can bring with these changes of things.
I have been wanting to get into the habit of writing, and I think it's very similar to your mission with your book, is to give myself grace, to hold myself accountable, but I have a hard time slowing down enough to reflect on things and to remember, and to, like you had mentioned, to give myself credit
Yeah.
for things.
Yeah.
I love speaking wisdom and inspiration and pouring hope into other people, and making sure the people that I talk to see and truly know what their gifts are and feel empowered to lean into those gifts. But I don't really give myself that space.
Same.
So I kind of have been toying with the idea of starting. I'm not like you. I'm a peacock. I like to share. So I've been thinking of starting a
Yeah.
Substack, a
Yeah.
newsletter.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's also important for especially people like yourself. I mean, you are running a very successful law firm. You have the CEO title. You're fun, you're loved. Everybody loves Sean. Like, everyone probably just thinks, wow, this guy gets it. He's
Yeah.
cracked the code.
Yeah.
But at least for me, what has helped me the most is hearing where people came from, and hearing that they did struggle with the same things that I'm struggling
Mm-hmm.
with currently. And that has been the fuel and the inspiration that has pushed me further in saying, if Sean can do it, I can do it too.
Yep.
So I think that's really my hope, if I do decide to start something like
Yeah.
that, is a space for me to really sit down and actually process things, but also an opportunity to just tell people that, listen, there's nothing special about me. I'm literally just figuring this out.
Yes. Yes. That's the ticket right there, right? And you minimize your power in saying that, first of all, right? Because you are powerful, but you don't have to be this extraordinary person to be powerful. You could be yourself and be powerful, and you could be authentic, and there's power in being authentic, right? I literally had to train myself to spend 40 minutes every day in writing this, right? Spent 40 minutes. The first 10 minutes was literally just sitting there and doing breathing exercises, which I'm struggling with. Doing breathing exercises just to get into a different place of trying to settle the noise. And then I would just type.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, what was the actual
Yeah.
process?
And then I would stop at 30 minutes. I had a timer and I would stop at 30 minutes, because then I knew my mind would want to keep going.
Yeah.
And it would want to keep going and keep going and keep going. And I knew what would happen at that point would be all of the other work would come up. And this happens to me all of the time, is then it would create level of resentment and anger. Right. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, now I'm doing this. And now, Dennis wants me to do this. How dare him? Right. Like, he doesn't know what's going on. And then all of these other things that are created as a result of my mind and my focus of just trying to work on this one thing, get it done, get it done. And then it wouldn't have been as genuine and authentic as I wanted it to be. It would have been a little bit forced to do that. So yeah, I think you should do it.
Well, actually, last week was the first time I sat down and started it.
Yeah.
And I was really curious about your process because I'm still figuring out what is my process going to
Yeah.
look like. And I really am so glad that you said 30 minutes, that's it, because I'm wired like you too. And like, once I do get into something, I just become obsessed
Yep.
and there's no pulling me away. But I also think that because I know how I am, I think that's also why I've procrastinated or resisted, because in my head, I'm like, oh, because once I do this, it's going to be this big thing and it's
Yep.
going to take up hours of my day and it's going to take away so much from everything else I have going on. And I have been really trying to rack my brain. How can I develop a habit of writing that is productive and moves the needle,
Yep.
but doesn't completely derail all the other goals and things that are on my plate?
Yeah.
But I like the 40-minute
Yep.
cutoff.
Yep. You have to,
That
right?
sounds actually doable.
That's what it is, right? It's 30 minutes. What's 30 minutes, right? We waste 30 minutes doing all kinds of
Yeah.
stupid things every day. Because otherwise, it's just going to be another thing that you're overwhelmed with.
Yeah, exactly. Sean, how can people connect with you if they listen to this episode and they want to follow along on your journey?
They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. They can go to the website. They can call me. I don't care. I make time for connection.
Yeah.
Somebody asked the other day, they said, what's the thing that lights you up the most? For me, it's hearing and saying, I love you, right? Because I didn't hear that growing up enough, right? So every night, I love you to my kids. Every morning, I love you to my kids. All my great friends, I love you. All of the time, it's hearing I love you, right? But the power is in having genuine connections with people.
Yeah.
That's where the power is, where I feel like I'm building my own wellness army with the people that I connect with.
I totally hear that. Some people might think this is inappropriate, but even a lot of the people I work with, like, some of the people I'm contracting, the people on my team, at the end of every meeting, I'm like, all right, bye girl, love you.
Yeah.
And it's because I have a very small circle.
Yep.
In both work and in life. And it's just so important to me that the people that are in my life, I feel deeply connected to.
For sure.
And I also am I have no problem generously telling people I love them.
Yes.
Because I think the world needs more of that.
I 100% agree.
Sean, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. This was an amazing conversation and I cannot wait to share it with the audience.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, guys, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to Cultivate CNY. If you enjoyed this conversation, I'd love it if you left us a quick review and made sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. And if something in today's discussion resonated with you, please share it, whether it's on social media or directly with a friend. You never know how hearing this conversation might be exactly what someone needs right now. And I love to hear your feedback. I love to hear your thoughts. So please be sure to tag us on social media if you do share there.